You know those sayings when you get older and people start saying, oh, well, when are you going to find the one? Or when are you going to settle down? Or when are you going to have kids even? I feel like that's a huge saying that everybody always says. Well, here today, I'm going to talk about a horror thriller film called Clock, which deals with exactly that, dealing with when are you going to have children. Is it worth your time? It's now premiering on Hulu. Well, let's discuss it. Clock is a horror thriller film that follows a woman's desperate attempt to fix her broken biological clock. The film stars Dianna Agron, Melora Hardin, Jay Alley, and Grace Porter, and many others, and was directed by Alexis Jacknow, and this is her directorial debut. Going into Clock, I knew that it was a horror film, and I really didn't know too much about this film, but I went ahead and checked this film out on Hulu, and I was actually pleasantly surprised about this movie. So for starters on this movie, the movie really centralizes on this woman named Ella. She's working really hard. She's married. Her husband is a doctor, and she is around 38 years old, and she has a few friends that are having babies, and she gets the question of, well, when are you going to have a baby of your own? And she says to them, well, I'm simply not going to have a baby. And of course, they find this to be very weird because they feel like their purpose is to procreate. So she goes to the doctor and she tries to get her biological clock fixed. And in doing so, she ends up skipping out on a job, and she goes out to this place where they do studies on actually fixing women's biological clocks. She doesn't tell her husband, and so she goes out to this facility to get fixed. And in doing so, this doctor kind of hypnotizes her, and she has these objects appear. These objects that get stuck into Ella's head, it starts to make her question certain things. She starts seeing some things, hallucinations. That's where the film, it really dives into the horror genre. I would say like there is certain things that make the film feel scary-ish, I would say. I would say that if you're someone that doesn't really watch horror, I think this is a film that would be safe for you to watch because I don't really think it's really that scary, but it has those thriller and suspenseful kind of moments, and it's one of those things that you're trying to guess what would happen next. I really didn't have a clue as to what was going to go down with this film. Was she going to really go off the deep end, or was something really going to break loose? Because as she's at this facility, things are happening and she really just starts to lose her mind, it seems like. And while she's at this facility as well, just a lot of things and a lot of unconventional things are happening of what this doctor is actually doing. It's specifically a lot of the different women that are around and the certain things and studies that this doctor does to get these women to feel like they want to have a baby. This story, it seemed like it was very scattered because I think that it introduces certain things like childbearing and, you know, if a child should be right for you. And really, does society really need to know in your mind if really a child is something that everybody really needs? Because everyone has different specific needs. But in this one, it really tackles the instance that this woman, she's in her late 30s, and why doesn't she have a baby? And of course, her husband would want one as well. So it really gets into those kinds of things. But I also felt like as the film kept going on, even though it had kind of a suspenseful story, had some horror moments, I really just didn't really, I would say, connect with the story, mainly because obviously I can't really connect with having a baby since I'm a man, I guess. But at the same time, I was definitely interested in the story and some of the elements that were presented. I thought the way that the film was shot wasn't too bad. I thought the acting wasn't too bad. It does feel very heavy-handed with certain dialogue. And I felt like a lot of the things that were presented, it was presented in a way that it was trying to share some type of message with the audience. But I don't know, like when it got to the third act, it seemed like it really went off the rails. It seemed like it introduced certain things and certain twists that it did introduce. I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. I really like that about it. But then we get to the last, I would say, 15-20 minutes of the film, and it just didn't really work for me. And I think what they were trying to do towards the third act was create some sort of symbolism and certain metaphors that it was trying to go for, but it just didn't really work for me. I just found that by the time the film ended, I felt in certain ways sort of confused and a little bit lost as to what the execution was. And unfortunately, because of that, this film, it's just kind of okay for me. I feel like half of this film I was very interested in, and I felt like other parts of this film, it really had me going, and I was like, well, we could use more of that horror and certain horror moments. It's not a film that's very jump scary. It's not looking to really scare you, but it has some really dark elements about it. And the main thing that it really capitalizes on is once this doctor actually hypnotizes Ella, those objects are the big front for what she has seen in her life. And when she is actually at home and actually seeing certain hallucinations, those three objects play that prominent role in the story. But unfortunately, after watching this movie, I can really only give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's just an okay movie. Again, it's not bad watch on a streaming service. Obviously, I didn't pay for it. So if you're going to go into this film and watch it, I think there'll be some things that you can pick out and really pick up on. And maybe for women, this film will be more relatable, of course, because of childbearing and having a child and do you want a child, that sort of thing. But overall, as far as a horror lover, I don't really think it really capitalizes too much on the horror. It does capitalize on certain suspenseful and thriller moments, and it has a decent soundtrack, I would say, and decent acting. But it just doesn't really hit home for me by the third act. And unfortunately, 2.5 is all I can give for this film. But let me know in the comments, what did you think about this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it just kind of meh? And if you haven't seen it, is it something that you're going to check out? Thank you guys for checking out this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.